Ladies and gentlemen, the meeting of the Wadsworth Planning Commission will please come to order. The first item on our agenda is the appointment of a Secretary Pro Tem for this evening's meeting. Is there a motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make a motion to appoint Mayor Labaugh as Secretary Pro Tem for this evening.
Second.
Heard the motion, the second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is public participation. I would note that we have two public hearings on the agenda this evening, and anyone in the audience who's either signed in or wishes to address the Planning Commission regarding those two. One is the rebuild of the Salvation Army facility, and the other one is changes to the zoning code of Wadsworth regarding riparian setbacks. If there's anyone else in the audience who wishes to address the Planning Commission on any other appropriate topic, we'd be glad to hear from you. If you come forward to the podium, give us your name and address for the record. All right, seeing that, I'll move on with the agenda. Under old business, the first item is the minutes from the August 12th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting for August 12th, 2024 as prepared.
Second.
You've heard the motion and the second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is a conditional zoning certificate site plan and replat for bank and drive-through and public storage facilities at 1100 High Street. Mr. Kaiser.
Yes, we held a public hearing on this, I think, back in July, and just recently received a lot of the corrections as well as some additional information regarding the traffic study. So I'm going to be meeting with the applicant early this week, make sure that everything that we received is complete, addresses those issues, so we'll be able to take this up at our next meeting in September. So right now, there's nothing to do but leave it on the agenda.
We probably need a motion to table this to our next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to table the conditional zoning certificate site plan and replat for 1100 High Street.
Second.
Heard the motion and the second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is a public hearing set for 7 p.m. regarding zoning text amendments, revisions to riparian zoning regulations. Mr. Kaiser.
Okay, this proposed amendment does revise the zoning regulations that pertain to riparian setback zones. Our riparian regulations went into effect in 2008. They were modeled on, they were based on model regulations recommended by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. If you recall from our last meeting's discussion, where we had Mr. Davis here, those recommendations from ODNR were very aspirational. It's like, in a perfect world, here's what we would do. And over time, issues have been created by them. And we discussed that. They were rather difficult to implement because the riparian zone was based on a formula that each property owner had to calculate. Because of that, it was inconsistent. The width could vary widely. It tended to be excessive and consumed more land than necessary, and in fact, in several cases, led to conditions where variances had to be granted because the only way to address a situation without that variance would be for the applicant to get a permit from EPA to fill a portion of the wetland, the thing that the regulations were trying to protect. So, again, there's some disparate impacts, especially those properties that were platted before 2008. Some of them have been pretty much rendered unbuildable because of these regulations. So the new provisions are a lot easier to understand and implement. They're a lot fairer in how they apply to properties, and as noted by Mr. Davis, they do provide watercourse protection without the overreach. As we talked about, the City of Wadsworth does have to obtain an MS4 permit from OEPA. That's a municipal separate storm sewer system requirement. We are required to protect the waters of the state, and by doing that, we sort of pass those things down the line. That's why we have riparian zone regulations, why we have stormwater detention. So page 2 is a summary of the various changes you can look over, but really to just even summarize that further, the big changes are that the width of the riparian setback zone is going to be changing. It'll now be 50 feet on either side of the stream bed for major water courses. It'll be 10 feet from along each bank from the high water mark for minor water courses. The boundary of the riparian setback as it applies to wetlands is going to be the wetland boundary itself, so there won't be any additional protection there. The riparian setback along flood hazard areas, as well as what are defined as local drainage courses, are going to be eliminated. And I think we talked a little bit about some of those terms last meeting, and if you look under the summary of changes, one of the first things are that, yeah, there are going to be some terms that were amended to address what is a local drainage course, what's a major waterway, minor, and engineering is working on a map for the major and minor waterways, so we'll have an idea of where the various setbacks apply. So really, I don't have much else to add to this. Again, I think it's a lot better approach, it's a lot fairer, and it's less onerous, not only for administration, but also for the property owners. So I would recommend that the Commission forward a recommendation to City Council that they adopt the proposed revisions. I believe, yeah, a copy of that ordinance has been discussed at Economic Development Committee, and it was attached in your report. So, if there's any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Kaiser?
I have one, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kaiser, would it be fair to say that many of the water courses currently present within the city's boundaries would be classified as minor water courses or have no classification whatsoever?
I think most of them would be minor. I believe Holmesbrook and Blackers Run, I think, qualify as the major water courses. Most everything else after that would be minor, and then there are smaller drainage ways for which that setback would no longer apply.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, at this time I'd like to open the public hearing regarding this topic. I would note that the Planning Commission acts in an advisory capacity to City Council. We'll make a recommendation to City Council regarding this, and they will take up the same topic and have their own public hearing, and they will make the final decision because they're the only ones that can change the zoning code of the city. So with that, no one has signed in. Has anyone else had second thoughts? Okay, not. I will close the public hearing. We have a recommendation from staff. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that the Commission forward a recommendation to City Council recommending the adoptions of the revisions to 154.510 through 154.518 of the city zoning ordinance pertaining to the riparian zone setbacks.
Second.
You've heard the motion, the second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing for conditional zoning certificate and site plan review for the Salvation Army on College Street. Mr. Kaiser.
Okay, the Salvation Army is proposing to rebuild their headquarters and church site at 527 College Street. What you see before you is an existing aerial of the property, and what's being proposed is this. I've summarized that in the staff report. A new building, roughly 9,700 square feet here in the northeast corner of the site. Parking for 52 vehicles plus. I believe there's room for expansion here that would go where the existing building is. expanding stormwater detention facilities that exist up along College Street. They'll have playgrounds for kids and some of their afternoon programs within a fenced area to the southwest corner of the new facilities, and then an exit drive onto Westgate Avenue. Going back here, you see we have two points of ingress egress that obviously will be changing to one drive, and then this drive here is mainly for maintenance vehicles because I believe the trash pickup area is right about here in the southeast corner, so trucks can come, pick up the trash, and then pull out. Primary use of the site is considered to be a church, which is a conditionally permitted use in residential districts. And like other churches, Salvation Army also has some ancillary services, such as the after-school programs. They do food distribution, provide other social services. Existing building they're in was constructed, I believe, in 1983. I've heard that structure was originally built as a funeral home, but never used as such. So I'm not sure how long they've been there, but it's been 30 plus years. And again, the new building is going to be double the existing size. But what's going on here, if I can scoot to a floor plan, along the south wall, there's going to be some additional classrooms constructed. What they're doing is they're bringing onto their campus or onto their main site some activities that they actually perform off-site. So again, with this expansion, they can basically consolidate all of their services to this one location. All conditional uses are subject to general standards that are found in section 154.544 of the code. I'm not going to really go into those because I think those conditions are met. They mainly come into play when we're talking new development. This is basically reconstructing an existing site that has been used the way it will continue to be used for 30 some years. So really the use is not changing, only the scale and location of the building and other site features are being modified. So I think we have no issues there. Under the conditional review, there are certain specific conditions that these particular uses have to meet. And I'm going to go back to this in drawing color because I think things show up a little bit easier. Those conditions, the specific conditions, are found in 154.546. They are paragraphs B3, 4, 6, 10, and 12. Condition 3 talks about all structures and activity areas being, well, they should be 100 feet from all property lines. That's not going to be the case here. In fact, there's very few sites in the city where that can be met. However, for the most part, they meet or exceed all of the the setbacks along the rear and side property lines. At last week's BZA meeting, they did get 2 variances to the front setbacks along both College Street and Westgate. If you can read that, the new building would be about 31 feet from the new property line and about 47 feet from the property line on Westgate Avenue. They're gaining a little bit of land, 5 additional feet on Westgate because the city's going to vacate a portion there. But we are taking 10 additional feet from the College Street, or we're adding 10 additional feet to the College Street right away in front of the new building. So that's one of the issues that led to the request for the variance. But ultimately, if you look at the site, the way they've laid it out, they've tried to move the building and most of the functions as far away from the neighboring residential properties. And so the setback encroachments really are just along the front street. Paragraph 4 talks about where locations to the site should be located. It's primarily concerned with the setbacks from the nearest intersections. In this case, College and Westgate is the nearest intersection. It's going to, let me see here. So I think, yeah, we've got a 236-foot separation. 100 feet is what's required, and I think we've got 175 feet from the intersection and the secondary access drive. And really, I didn't measure the setback to, don't even know the name of the adjacent street going north right now.
Or Sunset.
Sunset. But this driveway is in approximately the same location as the existing garage. So that's really not changing. And in fact, they're getting rid of that other offset. You can see that was not quite aligned, but they are moving everything a little bit further to the west. So the traffic impacts that we'll talk about a little later are not very significant here. So there's really no issue with this. Again, moving on to the next condition, the development should be located on major thoroughfares. Well, that's what College Street is classified. It is an arterial, so that condition's met. And the next paragraph is paragraph 10, talks about when extending utility services, it would be done at the developer's expense. I would point out, and I think this shows up a little bit better on the black and white drawing, the applicant will be extending a water line along Westgate Avenue and capping it with a hydrant, which is needed to reach the southern part of the building. They'll also be installing sidewalk along the Westgate Avenue frontage on their property. So, yeah, those are public improvements that will be paid for by the applicant. And finally, paragraph 12 talks about these types of uses should be adjacent to parks and other non-residential uses where possible. As I mentioned earlier, this site has been used by the Salvation Army for quite a few years here, 30 plus. They are adjacent to commercially zoned vacant land to their west, but ultimately it's located in such a way that any impacts to the adjacent residential uses are going to be minimized. So again, I do believe that the project does comply with the intent of these specific conditions. Moving on to just some of the development issues with this. As mentioned, the property currently consists of 3 properties that will have to be replatted into one new lot. That was approved last week and has been moved on to council. That plat will contain the dedication of some additional right-of-way here on College Street, but it's also going to include the vacation of some existing right-of-way in front of the old building, as well as giving back 5 feet here along Westgate. So basically, I'm going to zoom in here. Basically, this line, the green line that you see now that's a zigzag, will basically go right about here across the entire frontage. So we're going to level out that right of way at 40 feet rather than 50, which is what it is in front of the church now, and it's 30 feet in front of the vacant lots. Traffic impacts, I've included a narrative that was provided by the applicant in with your staff report. Basically, they explained the different activities that take place on the property or will take place, when they take place, and how they correspond to the AM and PM peak hours, which are roughly 6 to 8 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening. Long and short of it is that they conclude that no additional traffic studies need to be performed, and there's going to be no off-site improvements required with this project. The engineering department did look that over and they concur. So I think that we are okay here. And in terms of zoning compliance, with the exception of the front setbacks, for which variances were granted, the project meets or exceeds all of the other R2 district yard requirements, building heights, parking lot requirements, and even the parking lot setbacks. And that's another thing I'll just point out with this project, is that typically parking lots can be built within 5 to 10 feet of the property line. But as you can see the way it's lined up, they're going to have at least 25 feet along all provisions. Also do some landscaping here at the crest of the hill to kind of block that from the property owners to the west. Moving on, the other review agency comments. Nothing from safety or electric. Fire department recommended approval. Engineering department recommended approval. They did note a few things we've already talked about, including the improvements that'll be constructed along Westgate. That's the hydrant, water line, sidewalk. They'll need a general maintenance easement and agreement for the water basin, the detention basin, and some directional signage as part of the civil plan review, just to show that all potential stacking that may occur can occur on the property without backing up into College Street. The applicants did indicate that they do have a kind of a food pickup type activity. And I think during the discussions, they indicated they could route the traffic in through the parking lot so they can queue as many vehicles as possible. So that's something I think they should just address in more detail as part of the civil review. And then Architectural Design Committee, they'll review the building elevations, landscaping, and signage at a future meeting. So really that's all I have here tonight. Since we were down to 3 members, I was going to recommend that we just open the public hearing, take any comments, and then maybe table this until we have the full members present. However, if we don't hear from the public, if no one's here to speak in opposition or has questions, I did list about 5 conditions of approval that you can take under consideration.
All right. Any questions for Mr. President from the commission? Before I open the public hearing, if anyone from the applicant would like to speak briefly, we'd be glad to hear from you. Not necessary.
Sure. I'll share a few words. My name is Josh Drummond. I'm with David Plager Architects, and yeah, I think Jeff did a great job summarizing the project and kind of what we're requesting. I just wanted to add that there was an open house back in, was it May? Where we invited the local community to see the plans and give them an opportunity for any questions or concerns that they had. And at that point in time, there were no concerns raised. I think with this proposed layout, it's been very respectful as far as trying to be considerate of all the neighbors. And again, without recapping what Jeff has already mentioned, we've, the current building and occupant has been there since the 80s, and by transitioning and locating the proposed building to the kind of the northeast corner, we're really separating or creating a greater separation from the neighboring properties, and I think creating more of kind of a park-like setting. So really that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Any questions? Thank you. All right, at this time I'd like to open the public hearing. No one signed in, but if anyone in the audience who wishes to address the Planning Commission regarding the proposed rebuild of the Salvation Army facility, we'd like to hear from you. Come forward to the podium, give us your name and address. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, as far as I'm concerned, I would be comfortable approving this evening.
I agree.
So, all right, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we, let's see here. I would make a motion that we approve the conditional zoning certificate and site plan for the Salvation Army redevelopment plan at 527 College Street with the 5 conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
You've heard the motion and the second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all for coming this evening.
Thank you.
And Mr. Kaiser, no new business? Other business?
Yeah,
Other
the
business?
only thing I wanted to mention, our next meeting is scheduled for September 9th. Obviously, I expect Cam to be back on that agenda.
Yeah.
Also got 5 new cases. So it could be a fairly lengthy meeting. There's also some committee meetings earlier in that afternoon, so we'd either have to meet at 7 o'clock, unless, you don't have to answer now, but if you're free, we could, once the other 2 members are back in town, maybe consider meeting at 3 o'clock that afternoon and getting that out of the way. So I'll send an email out shortly after Labor Day to see if that's an option and see if the other members
Let us know.
are available.
See if we get a quorum.
Yeah.
All right, commissioners, anything else for this evening? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We adjourned.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.